Hello and welcome to the post LP talk about El Shaddai. And with me is my comrade Geisha Deconstruct. Hello.
Hey.
So that was a successful LP. We all through the
Yeah.
end.
We got all the way through to the end. We didn't descend into raging at each other. Yeah. I'd call that a success.
So I played the game a bit before the LP, so I wasn't going into it blind. But what did you think about it going into it without not knowing basically anything about
Okay,
it?
so I didn't really know a lot of what to expect from it other than, pretty boy Japanese Bible fights. I knew a little bit about like the Book of Enoch and the mythology behind it, but not much about the game itself. So I mean, whenever we do something like this, I try to know as little as possible. So it's always quite a good fresh impression, I guess. But yeah, no, I went in knowing very, very little.
Yeah, at the start, my thoughts when I started the game for the first time, like the only thing I knew about it was super pretty and good,
Yeah.
and it was the kind of divisive good that I kind of saw with Nier, because
Yes.
the things I heard about Nier were similar to the things I heard about El Shaddai in the sense of how many people liked it and what they liked and didn't like. So I figured, hey, it might be another winner for me. Like I might like the game. So first off, I just knew it was that's super pretty,
Hmm.
and it kept getting pretty and saying pretty, and then it started getting a bit bonkers.
It got so bonkers, and I loved it.
Like at first it was okay, um, like we moved from very artsy landscape to a tower full of eyes, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then a painted land, and then the Nephilim level happened, and I wasn't sure what was going on anymore.
Yeah, that just kind of it threw me so much, and it was just so utterly batshit. And then everything just kept getting madder and madder from there on in. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and it kind of has this, like it gets odd and then it takes a little break, and then it gets odd again, and it just keeps going that tempo until the end of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And it just, like, in terms of. There's very little I didn't enjoy about El Shaddai. I think the one thing that did bother me is like the really drawn out combat sequences in places. I mean, I think I've moaned about that a couple of times where
Yeah.
it does get a little bit tedious. And okay, even the combat's so stylish. Everything's just, there's so much like fantastic attention to detail, that it kind of annoys me that it has that one like thing with combat getting tedious because everything is so stylish and wonderful otherwise.
Yeah, I think they kind of trap themselves into their own system, because the way the combat works is that they need enemies with specific weapons, so you can always actually be armed and have an answer to other enemies. But
Yeah.
that severely limited the enemy variety. I mean, the only difference between enemies that carried the same weapon was how much damage they could take and how much damage they dealt and how they looked.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, like maybe adding something like, I don't know,
There wasn't a lot of variation. It was like they'd kind of come up with these fantastic concepts for each level and like all this amazing artwork to give you these beautiful, gorgeous, stylish looking play areas.
yeah.
And then they invested quite a bit in making combat look really, really good. And then you kind of have, like, with the exception of, like, the bosses and the watchers, then you just have, like, the same trash mobs over and over and over and over with so little variation that it gets really bloody boring.
Yeah,
And it's kind of disappointing.
yeah. I think one thing I noticed that I'm not sure I caught completely on camera. If you remember that one enemy who had the fancy rose attack, like with thorns everywhere, who was just like a
Yeah.
general mook. I think they have those kind of attacks programmed, which are theme based, so that depends on the watcher they serve. Because
Okay.
when I was unlocking stuff, a few Armoros mobs attacked me with similar water attacks I never saw. So apparently they did have some signature attacks that varied from level to level, but they barely triggered for some reason.
Yeah. It's a shame. I mean, even if they were just programmed to trigger more often, it would just give a little bit more interest to what actually becomes quite repetitive.
I mean, like, to be honest, they do use the Watcher ambushes to pad out content as well, but that's still interesting because their attacks are all individual. Like, they don't have the same attacks.
Yeah.
So it's still interesting to see that.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish that more games just had, like, this idea of just let's put in a vehicle section but make it good.
I honestly, like, that section is just the most amazing thing in the entire game, because it's like, let's have, like, fighty, and it's like they'd kind of started writing the plot and they'd kind of gone along and it's quite standard, and then I don't know, they all got pissed one night or took a lot of crack or something and thought, do you know what would be a really good idea? And it was just, it was so wonderful.
I think though it kind of proves that you can kind of try and shift genres in a game. You just need to do it well, because a lot of games that just add like vehicle sections for no reason, or just add, I don't know, a different type of gameplay in a certain section, like, I don't know, a shooter and a platformer or whatever, just one level. They generally drop the ball. They kind of add for variety, but they never polish it.
Yeah.
That vehicle section seemed like it had a lot of polish on it.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, it clearly was in there as let's try a really batshit idea, but actually it worked quite well.
Yeah, I was completely surprised that it actually did work, and I wouldn't mind like an entire small game based around that, to be honest.
And I mean, sometimes you have like that kind of genre shifting games and it just doesn't work, or it's really bloody frustrating. I mean, the one that it kind of reminded me most of, like, Final Fantasy VII, which pretty much does that to you.
Oh, with the snowboarding?
With the snowboarding, but no, it has like a motorcycle chase sequence as well. And I find it to be really jarring and quite frustrating, because you're kind of going along in your little kind of JRPG with your turn-based combat, and then all of a sudden you've got this fucking like motorcycle sequence that's actually really bloody frustrating, and it's thrown at you out of nowhere. And like, I don't know, maybe I'm probably going to annoy all the people, like the diehard people who think it's the best bit of the game, but I find it to be really fucking irritating. Because it was just, I just felt I didn't like add anything other than an exercise in frustration. Whereas in El Shaddai, it kind of does it in such a way that, like, I mean, in Final Fantasy VII, it kind of feels very much do it again stupid, because it kind of takes you going through it maybe once or twice to get a hang of the mechanics, and then like you've got to like you've got to kill a certain amount of things and not take so certain amount of damage. It's a pain in the arse. But El Shaddai just ramps it up to 11 and goes, do you know what? Fuck it. Let's put this in here and let's make it as awesome as we can, and just make it an exercise in badassery. And it does it brilliantly. And
I don't think they even particularly cared if you had trouble with that section or not, because there's so much health pickups that they probably just want to go on the joyride.
It's pretty much there, and it's wonderful, and it's fantastic.
So, what do you think about the Eastern take, or rather the anime take on Christian mythology?
It's always something that I find quite interesting. It's something that we kind of, you do see quite often. It does quite appear quite a lot. I enjoyed it. And you can, it's kind of obvious that there has been quite a bit of homework done. And I guess it's a fresh perspective. I mean, it's one of those things where you're going to get a lot of people who are going to like use it as fuel for, video games are bad, video games are the devil's work. But I think it's quite fun,
Yeah. Also, just to correct myself, it's actually, since it's the Book of Enoch, it's not exclusively Christian mythology, but yeah. I mean, I'm guessing,
Judeo-Christian.
yeah, Judeo-Christian. I think the other people, I think the developers were also a bit scared about that because they have that disclaimer that
They do have that disclaimer.
Yeah, and I think that disclaimer is in every Assassin's Creed game too, because they also mess around with Christianity and historic personalities a lot, and they kind of need this. Hey, we're just trying to be not creative and not insensitive.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I think it is. I mean, it is a sensitive subject in a lot of ways, and you do get a lot of people that will get their panties in a bunch about it. But at the same time, it's one of those things that you see this with Judeo-Christian mythology, but not quite so much with any of the other major world religions.
I mean, like, Western entertainment has butchered Eastern religion and philosophies to hell and back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. But I think, like, you're kind of getting this where I guess it's... what am I trying to say? I think a lot of it is what we have, like, when it's, certainly to an Eastern audience, it's something that's not kind of, I guess, your everyday life. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I think, like, how I put it is, I think, like, in the East, or at least Japan in particular, they're kind of more open, in fiction at least, to kind of remix current stuff. Like, they kind of like Christian motives in their fiction the same way we kind of like use Eastern religion and like Eastern religion motives. Like, I don't know, like having this idea of honorable samurai or whatnot, and using that kind of theme. That's how the way we use it, that's how you see them use it in, I don't know, games and anime and whatnot. I mean, like, if you look at it, a lot of JRPGs actually do have this iron fist ruling religious entity as the bad guy.
Which is not really... Yeah, no, that... I see. Yeah, I get what you mean. I get where you're coming from with that. And that is definitely something that you do see quite often.
Yeah, and, like, even in, like, anime, I know... Like, I know a bunch of them, like, I don't know, Evangelion, like, who has it as a main focus, as a main theme, and then you have... like, I don't know if you've seen Death Note, but Death Note just at one point just decides, we're gonna put a bunch of crosses and a bunch of biblical references here and motives because we think that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, but do you think it's to do with it being, like, going, this is cool, or do you think it's to do with it being something that's so different from that kind of, that society's cultural history?
I mean, I think it might be both. I don't know, when I wrote some stuff, I did include quote-unquote non-Western exotic motives, and some of them I included because I thought they were cool. Some of them I researched and decided, hey, this would fit. And I don't think it, like, matters. I think a person who reads or watches or experiences a work can tell how that depiction comes across. Like, you can tell when it's phoned in, and you can also tell when there was some thought put into it. Like for example, like, El Shaddai has a lot of deviations. Like, I mean, it's a very liberal interpretation, but there's also a bunch of details that are based in actual source material. Like how Grandma, what's her name, would blow wind at you in the side-scrolling levels, and that kind of was a reference to how she introduced the concept of, like, predicting weather to humans, and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
So there are, like, a few details like that, and but again, I think it's like fine to be liberal. I wish more people would approach Christianity in their creative arts rather than just sticking with it as conspiracy theories and the Templars.
I think certainly in a Western society, what you tend to get is conspiracy theories and Templars.
Yeah, that's the only two things that are
because
okay.
I think there's kind of nearly a fear of
Yeah.
touching Christianity in an artistic way, because it's going to offend someone. Let's face it, it's going to offend someone. Someone will look at it and go, no, this is untouchable. You shouldn't have done this because it's, it's sacred and what you've done is blasphemy. And actually, I think if you take your source material and handle it respectfully, even if you are a little bit liberal with it, I mean, I certainly don't see that as being in any way a kind of blasphemy. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, we're talking about something that's, been through many interpretations anyway.
I mean, if you look at like the Matrix is essentially stealing concepts and ideas and references from the Bible and just putting them in sci-fi. And this is kind of like a more direct approach to it, in which you're actually taking the real characters instead of just doing an analogy to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And just like to go a bit like a tangent, since you mentioned that there was a fear, I actually thought that was usually just blown out of proportion. But I do know someone. Have you heard of the game Bayonetta?
Yes.
So in that game, you basically kill a crap ton of angels, and angels are, I think, evil or evil-ish. In that, essentially, you're just killing angels that look like monsters. But
okay,
I had a friend who was super hyped for that game. Like, they were following it a year before it was released, just like following development. And then they get it on release day, and they start playing it. And their mother, who's this hyper-Christian, walks in and asks, hey, why are you playing that? And it's not the excessive fan service and suggestive materials that she has a problem with. The problem she had was that he was killing angels in that game.
Well, this is, I think, is like, it's a more common occurrence than I think, people in general are aware of. Certainly, I mean, I remember when I was growing up, I had a friend at school whose parents, her mother was very, very strictly controlling over what video games her and her brothers were allowed to play and what they weren't. And it was nothing to do with mature content at all. It was all to do with whether or not the games they were playing were compatible with her fundamentalist Christian religious beliefs.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, Spear of the Dragon. They weren't allowed to play Spear of the Dragon. Now, Spear of the Dragon, it's cutesy. It's about a cute little purple dragon. It's kind of adorable, right?
Okay.
Yeah, no. Spear of the Dragon is clearly evil because it follows a dragon, and dragons are satanic.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, that was that kind of a mentality. So, yeah. So, on that random tangent, I think it is a lot more common than I think you realise.
Yeah. I just like... Yeah, but I think, like, 5 years ago, and this game was from around that period, it was a bit more problematic because you didn't have that big of, like, an indie game self-published scene. Like, you had to have a retail publisher. I think now it's a bit safer to tackle that, as long as you're not, like, boxed on a shelf. And even if you are, the amount of games being released at the moment is so big that you'd probably profit from any controversy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get, I mean, if you release something that is, controversial, you're going to get people that are going to buy it just because it's cool to be controversial. It absolutely will increase your sales.
Yeah, as we've seen with Bloody Hatred.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think we're getting a sequel to El Shaddai. I'm not sure what your thoughts are.
And I think that's a shame. I would quite like to see more. I would really have, I think they made a really promising game. I think it was, there was more that I loved about it than frustrated me. And I think it's a shame that we're not going to see any more of it.
Yeah, I think it would work well as a much smaller game on a smaller budget and smaller scale, and if it had just like the same narrative content.
Yeah.
So like they don't need to pad it out or anything.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, this game apparently didn't sell well enough for a sequel. But also another issue with it was that the publisher that well, the thing is, the developer was also the publisher,
Okay.
and said publisher slash developer was bought out by a large company. I think Disney. I couldn't verify that. And after that, the studio just ceased to have any updates. Like their site doesn't even exist anymore. But I know that the original creator got the IP back, so if they ever decide to do anything with it, they might make a sequel.
Okay.
That would really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of set up for one.
Yeah, I even the entire nuke the monster from orbit moment was all. I think it was all just a hint at what's gonna happen in the sequel, which
Yeah.
probably wouldn't even deal with Enoch.
Yeah. It's a shame. I would have loved to have seen more. I would have loved a sequel.
Yeah, but
El Shaddai 2.
Second Ascension.
Yeah. I think it would have been great.
I think so too. And I could bet what you want that Lucifer would probably turn out to be the villain.
Oh, probably.
I mean, they just like set it up so that he is slowly turning into the bad guy.
Yeah. I mean, Lucifer. I have really divided feelings over Lucifer right now. Like I find him to be a really interesting and enjoyable character.
As the devil usually is.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, what he did to Arboros was just so. Things I want to say it was a dick move, but I want to say he was being a bastard, but it wasn't even that. It was just callousness. It was just like utter utter callousness. But I guess that makes sense for an inhuman character.
Well, so the entire like main theme about it is humans have a choice and angels don't, watchers don't, and that's what sets them apart. So the watchers are kind of trying to be more human, but they can't be human because they're angels. But because they kind of are trying to be more and more human,
they're trying to imitate humanity.
They try to imitate humanity. So, in a sense, I don't think they were. I think they weren't evil. I think they were driven by human emotions, or rather, trying to emulate human emotions.
No, I mean, I've never throughout the entire game, I never saw them as being evil. The bad guy, yeah, but only in the sense that they've gone against their programming, I guess, and you're sent to clean it up. So it's kind of it's an unusual situation where you have like these villains that aren't necessarily villains, and you're playing cleanup duty, but actually, are you doing the right thing by doing it? And then that, that obviously plays into Enoch's total, crisis of self, 2/3 of the way through the game.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting premise, because, I think you have got a tendency, just in general, for people to want heroes and villains, heroes and villains, heroes and villains. That's just what people like, Whereas I do, I mean, with the Watchers, they've become enamored with humanity. They're trying to emulate humanity. They are very aware that humanity has got free will and that they don't. But I don't actually see them as the bad guys, because what they've done it's rejecting their programming more than anything else, and trying to be something they're incapable of being.
How I saw it was as them trying to grasp how human emotions work is kind of like trying to explain, sound to a person who can't hear.
Or purple to a blind person.
Yeah, and that way, so when oh god, my mind completely stopped. What's the Nephilim guy? The guy with a lot of Nephilims.
Sariel.
Sariel, yeah, brain fart there. When
Oh.
Sariel says that he loves humanity, he is either he is not lying, but he has a completely different grasp of what love is. Like, he has love explained to him, and he emulates how love is explained to him, but he doesn't actually understand how his actions equate, or what the consequences of his way of showing love is. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like the problem with most of the Watchers. I think they kind of are constantly thinking they're doing the right thing, but they don't actually understand
And
how their actions hurt humanity.
yeah, so I mean, you have Sariel who, you know, has all his dead girlfriends,
Yeah.
and then Azrael with his like forced evolution of humanity, and bringing them up to this, you know, dystopian cyberpunk future, which, as we all know from like every video game and movie ever, you know, dystopian cyberpunk futures are not actually that great a place.
Yeah, and I think Heaven's stance is generally humans have to learn how to do all those things. Like, you
Yeah.
just sped up the process without them understanding how to deal with all those things.
Yeah,
Which is why they
yeah,
kind of
exactly.
like which is why you got fanatics. So like humanity would reach that evolution, but since they didn't reach it by themselves, they
Yeah.
also became enamored with the Watchers.
Yeah, the naked mewling apes need to figure it out for themselves. Stop making them do it
Yeah,
too soon.
yeah, and what I don't get though is, here's the thing. Angels are said that they don't have choice. Humans do, but angels don't. And like, as Armoros quote unquote proved in his level that he was human because he chose to go and save Enoch. Like, he proved his humanity to Lucifer while Lucifer was taunting him. Like, oh, why don't you prove that you're human? And the thing is, I've heard arguments that Lucifer was being super neutral. Like, him leaving Armoros wasn't evil, it was him being neutral. But then, like, Enoch's job wasn't to kill the Watchers.
It was to bring them back home.
Yeah, it was to purify them and bring their souls back. And also, Lucifer decided to go and save Ishtar, which was obviously like a decision in that moment. Maybe like God told him on the phone to do that, but Lucifer didn't want Enoch to go into the darkness. And that was the only way to save Ishtar, or rather get Ishtar's soul back. So he chose to save her and get her back, even though he isn't allowed to interfere. But he didn't choose to like save Armora. So obviously there's something more to it, I think. I don't think it's like completely like in that universe's interpretation of angels. I don't think it's like clear cut as like they don't have choice. Like, it's mostly like where they will go against their programming or not. I mean, I'm not saying like angels as per like source material, rather angels as shown in the actual game.
Yeah.
That's my argument for like not liking Lucifer.
Well,
I do think he chose to be a bastard.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was a conscious choice or not, it was still in terms of the context of the setup for it, it was very callous. And whether it was callous because he's incapable of showing humanity, or if it was callousness because he's, you know, they're a bastard, it was still callous, and it does kind of change your opinion of him, regardless of whether it's something that he made a conscious choice to do or not.
Yeah, and there's that like extremely ominous moment when he suggests that God takes a break and he takes over for a bit.
Yeah, that is a little bit ominous.
Yeah.
But I think certainly in terms of Lucifer, I mean, if you look at those two options of putting it, right, okay, so say Lucifer doesn't have a choice. He doesn't have a choice. His programming is to keep Enoch safe. Right? That is what he has been ordered to do, is keep Enoch safe. Okay, he doesn't have a choice. That still changes your opinion of him, because suddenly he's gone from being someone that maybe, you know, he's gone from being, you know, so you're I guess Enoch's guide to being a kind of mindless drone. Okay, so that changes your opinion one way.
Yeah.
However, if he made the conscious choice to be a dick and leave Armor Us behind, it makes him a dick. And frankly, I mean, either way, it is something that changed you. Either he's completely incapable of any kind of compassion and humanity, or he chooses not to be. But either way, it does change your opinion of him. So regardless of the motivation of what was actually going on, it's still a kind of turning point for how you react to that character.
Yeah, and I also think it's like, I don't know, maybe my opinion of how Heaven did things and how Watchers do things. I don't think, like, Heaven didn't seem to have, like, good intentions. Rather, they had intentions in favor of humanity. So, like, they were willing to flood and start over and kill everyone just because it's the better choice, for the sake of humanity.
Yeah, definitely.
Until Enoch stopped them. And generally, they do seem to be more focused on, like, when they try to stop Enoch when he went for Nana, and, like, that's not how you'd expect, angels or good guys to work, but that's how I think, like, they're not necessarily good, they're rather good towards humanity as a concept and as a species.
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult discussion. I think it's one that you could go so in depth with and carry on for so long.
Yeah.
And then, argue yourselves around in circles, because there's a lot to it. And there's a lot of context that we've not even begun to touch on, and there's a lot of, much more theologically educated people than us have argued about this for a very, very, very long time. So, yeah.
That's why I'm just, like, approaching this as I'm looking at the game story.
Exactly.
Because I'm not qualified to go further in depth, although I'm hoping somebody who is can chime in, whether in the comments or on the forums or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, anything else you'd like to add?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we've kind of covered the main things.
Yeah.
Really, that are what we kind of wanted to talk about. Did you have anything else?
No, I think, like, I enjoyed this playthrough, and I like more of these games so I can play through them. I think like El Shaddai, whether it's, like, a good or a bad game in anyone's opinion, it still kind of stands out as a very...
It's unique.
It's a very unique thing, and not like a unique Snowflake type of thing, but rather like, even if I don't like this, I'm kind of glad it exists kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just... the whole way through that Let's Play, I was just sitting there going, oh, it's so pretty. But it genuinely is wonderfully animated. The art style, the art direction is absolutely fantastic. It's not something, it stands out just because there's so little that is like it in terms of, like, style and looks. It's just, it's just, I'm glad it exists. I really am.
And one of the next games we'll be doing will be something completely different.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. People will see it when it's posted. But anyway,
okay.
If you watched this far, thank you all for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back with more interesting stuff, I hope.
Well, we'll try.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye!